So welcome to our YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. It's December and it's been an absolutely amazing year. I'm going to take you for a tour around my allotment. I'm also going to be sharing some of my experiences over the year. So it's not just going to be a tour, it's going to be my general experiences as a gardener to try and help you grow better. Now, one of the things I'm going to slightly touch on is there's an awful lot of guilt associated with gardening and whether we can use chemicals, whether we can use plastic, whether we do dig, whether we do no dig. And it can often leave people a little bit paralysed of what they can and can't do. Now, what I wanted to say, occasionally we do have to compromise when we have an allotment and use things that we don't want to use. And you shouldn't feel guilty about it, is what I'm going to say, because if your crops don't succeed, you're going to be sourcing your fruit and vegetables from an external source, and I can guarantee that they won't have they won't be as good a quality. They will have put more chemicals on them and used more things and travelled more air miles than you ever would do on your allotment. So rather than me talk about it all here, we're going to go for a little wander around just so I can give you some ideas, because some things grow quite naturally without anything, and that's another thing. And there may be the things that you want to make sure that you concentrate on when you're first starting, or if you feel like you're not you're feeling guilty for using things, and I don't want anyone to do that. I want people, the whole point about this channel is that everybody grows fruit and vegetables a lot better, and you feed yourself, not just in the summer times, but all throughout the year as much as you possibly can, and you feel good about it and you feel confident about it. So let's get started and let's get around the allotment. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be amazing if you could, so you'll get all my tips all throughout the year. I do a video pretty much every week, come what may, whatever the weather, just to keep you inspired and motivated to grow the best fruit and vegetables that you possibly can. So let's start off with rhubarb. Rhubarb is an amazing thing to grow. You can use it in sweet and savoury dishes, and you can make jams and chutneys and all sorts of weird and wonderful things with it. Obviously it's the end of the year and it's gone to sleep now. We have a few little sprouts on it, but it won't be doing anything until the spring. Now this doesn't need really too much interference at all. All I do is I gently weed around it, and I usually mulch it with a little bit of manure or some grass clippings. I've never ever needed to cover it, spray it, or do anything with it. So that's a really great thing to have on your allotment if you've not already got it, so you can feel completely guilt-free about rhubarb. Because I mean, please do put some comments as we're going around, and I'd like your input. And we're not going to have arguments in the group. This is a healthy open space where we can all debate just to genuinely help each other grow better fruit and vegetables. But rhubarb is a really easy thing to grow, and it, like I say, it grows without very little intervention. And if all you did was put a few grass clippings on it and a little bit of manure and kept it weeded, and it would pretty much do pretty well. And obviously give it a little bit of water when it needs it. Doesn't need any water at the moment. Fruit trees can be a little bit more tricky, if I'm honest, and I'm not the best fruit tree grower in the world. I didn't need to spray them this year, but I have occasionally sprayed them from time to time because they do get blighted with things, and despite my best efforts they do seem to sometimes suffer, and I don't like doing it. But if my fruit trees don't do very well, I'm going to have to source my apples from somewhere else. Now I know they're going to have travelled lots of miles. They might not be in plastic because I can buy loose ones, but there would have been plastic and lots of other things interfered with them along the way. So if I can do anything to keep my fruit trees growing and keep me in apples, and I've still got a few apples at home in my conservatory that I'm eating, then that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to feed myself and my friends and family, if there's any left over. And raspberries, again, are a really easy thing to grow. All you really need to do is again a little bit of mulch. I never feed them, I never need to spray them. All I need to do is occasionally put a little bit of mulch around them. Prune them correctly, that's a really important thing. You do sometimes need to water them, that's about the only thing you do need to do, but they do grow ridiculously easily. So that's another thing that, yeah, it just grows naturally. So if you're worried about using chemicals, stick to the things that definitely don't need it. So raspberries, same with my black currants, just a little bit of mulch around them, a little bit of pruning, so these are my gooseberries and my blackberries, black currants over there. Same thing, they just grow really, really well. They just need, the only feed I put around them will just be a little bit of manure or something like that, and just keeping them weeded, keeping them pruned. Parsnips, again, something that grows quite naturally in the ground. I'm not the best parsnip grower in the world. I've dug one so far this year. Not my best work, I'm not going to lie. Carrots, about the only thing I do, again, is just something that you just need to keep weeded. Incredibly easy to grow. is Enviromesh. Oh, game changer. I know it is plastic, but it is absolutely fantastic. Ever since I've put a little bit of Enviromesh over my carrots, I've had the best carrots ever. Keeps the carrot fly off. Also, generally, I think keeps it a little bit warmer, and generally I get much better carrots. Well worth the investment. I will put a link up on the screen for Enviromesh if you find it useful, and there will be one in the description. But for me, Enviromesh on my carrots, absolute game changer. Leeks, another thing, grow without any real intervention. You don't need to put any sprays on them. They are very easy thing to grow. They do need to be kept well weeded because they don't tolerate weeds very well. So just keeping them well weeded, watered when you need to, although at the moment plenty of water. So very easy. So as you can see, there are lots of things. I've got a bit of mulch down here only because we get it donated up at the allotment, and although I typically do use quite a bit of ground cover because for me it helps me manage my allotment a lot better. There are some areas at home where I don't need to cover because I can manage that because it's a smaller area, but up at the allotment I need to cover things a bit more. But I've put a bit more mulch down this year because I'm trying to do less ground cover if I can, but I'm not perfect, and I have got a bit of ground cover which I'll show you when we get further down. So I've got the blueberries in there, so again, you know, they grow. Just make sure you prune them correctly, keep them covered because the birds will attack them, which is what I did when obviously the actual blueberries are on there. But they grow incredibly easily, and I had a really good crop for them even though they're only a couple of years old. So really chuffed with them, very chuffed. So I'm really hoping that they were that much bigger this year. I'll get even more. So I've got my garlics in here. A little bit of fennel, which I couldn't bear. It sprouted again, so it shouldn't really be in there, and the frost will probably kill it, but I've just left it in there. But they've got my garlics in there. Again, garlics, you know, well drained soil, they just grow naturally. Just keep them well weeded, exactly like leeks and onions that are here. They don't tolerate the weeds very well, so I have put a little bit of mulch from my composter up at the top there to keep the weeds down. So I weeded them. That's one thing, when people go no dig, they think it's no weed. It's not no weed. You still need to take the weeds out. You just take them more out at surface level, and sometimes you have to go down a little bit deeper to get them out, and then you cover it with something like perfect stuff is stuff off your composter to mulch with. Some people use grass clippings to mulch with as well, so there's a whole host of stuff out there. So this area here had lots of my squashes down here, so my squashes did ridiculously well this year despite the onslaught of slugs and snails in absolute unbelievable proportions, and I always start off more. So that's another top tip. When I start things off, I often start off more, so if the slugs and snails get them, I've got replacements, and if I have too many, I can give those plants away, so it's a good problem to have. But I grew possibly almost 80 squashes and pumpkins, so I've been eating a lot of squash and pumpkin and courgettes and sharing it with my friends and family. I've still got quite a lot in my conservatory that are going to keep me through the winter, so even though I haven't got any of those in the garden, I've still got plenty of stuff that's going to feed me throughout the winter and into the early spring as well. And my potatoes were pretty good this year as well, which were up the top there, which I didn't touch on. Again, potatoes, I normally put a little bit of organic feed in with them, and they just keep them a little bit weeded because they're quite a lot of foliage. You don't need to weed them that much, so they grow quite naturally as well. I've got to be honest, my squashes and my pumpkins, I do give them a little bit of feed, but I do try and buy one that's an organic feed, and I also do my own comfrey feed over there in the barrel, so I mix it up a little bit. So I do put a bit of feed on my squashes and pumpkins because I feel that they do benefit from it, and also the courgettes as well. So this is the ground cover that I use. Like I said, it's been a game changer for me. Having a large allotment is quite overwhelming. And when I started using this, it made such a big difference to me personally, being able to manage my allotment. Because I work and I have a family, I only have limited time up the allotment. I do not spend hours up here. So if you want to know that, I might have a YouTube channel, but I don't spend my life up here. I spend short bursts of time up here regularly, little and often. So this ground cover made such a difference. It does lots and lots of things in the fact that it keeps the ground moist underneath, so it lets this kind of ground cover lets the water through, It keeps the ground softer and moister, so in the spring when I do lift it and start to plant, it's easier for me to work on, and most importantly it keeps the weeds down as well. I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you want to get some of this. Like I said, I use it every year. I've had this years. I put it down at the end of the season. I lift it up in the spring when I'm just about to plant, and it makes life a heck of a lot easier for me, and I do not feel guilty about it, because if I didn't do this I would struggle to manage, and then I'd end up buying my produce, and that's not what I want. I've got a few more carrots over here underneath the enviromesh. I've also got some spinach here, which you can see we're getting a little bit of slug damage this time of year, but there is still plenty of spinach there. And I also have a little bit of beetroot, which I really must get up. I think I said that on the last video. Again, I'm not perfect. There's some weeds all around this area as well. I'm getting to it as and when I can, and next week I plan to come up and do a short area and try and clear some bits as well. So as we move down, I had some more squashes and pumpkins and things on this part. And these are my Jerusalem artichokes. So these are not the globe artichokes that grow above the ground. They're the tuber variety. People love them or hate them, but they grow like weeds and they grow easily. So again, I don't need to water them, feed them, spray them, net them. They grow naturally. They're not to everyone's taste, but you can use them similar to a potato. So a Jerusalem artichoke is a very, very easy thing to grow. I've got more gooseberries over there, and I did have more squashes and pumpkins here. I had my Cape gooseberries over here. Now they were a definite win. I tried growing them once but didn't get them in soon enough. These were a definite win this year. Again, didn't need to touch or spray them with anything. The only thing I did do is I did give them a little bit of tomato feed, and again I try and source an organic one where I can. So it is worth paying a little bit more for it, but if you can't afford an organic feed, just buy what you can afford. Again, no judgment. The most important thing is you grow your own fruit and vegetables. It's going to be better than anything you buy from the supermarket or anywhere else for that matter. So the Cape gooseberries grew incredibly well. I've still got a small bowl full of them at home, but just the tail end, they were absolutely delightful. But my tip for that is get them in early. I think I probably sowed the seeds around February time, so not long and we'll all start sowing our seeds again. I grew French beans and runner beans, and I've probably got about 8 bagfuls of beans in the freezer. So again, even though I've not got them growing at the moment, I've got plenty of beans to keep me through the winter. I've also got lots of jams in my preserves cupboard. So there's all sorts of ways of still eating your vegetables and your fruits, but just storing them in a different way. So I've got quite a lot of stuff that I can jump on and still eat at the moment. I've also got my kale, which is a little bit sorry for itself. That does need to be lifted up, and I do need to do a little bit of tidying up underneath there, but at least it hasn't been massacred by the whitefly, which is what I had last year. Absolutely massacred by whitefly. I do double net quite often my kale and my broccoli with a bit of enviromesh and a little bit of the scaffolding net, because I find that the butterflies still manage to get in if I don't do that. And again, I know some people manage to grow these things without covers on them. I literally don't know how they do it. I'm not going to lie to you, because if I didn't cover my stuff, I know that the cabbage butterfly would have them, I know the birds would have them. So for me, a little bit of netting, which again I use same bits year after year after year after year, you know, do a really good job for me. I also have my wildflower bit down here, which was really, really exciting this year. So I'm going to let this bit naturally die down, and hopefully it will mainly just self-sow itself. And I also have my cut flower statuses along here, which might stand the winter, so I shall leave them in, and if they last the winter, fantastic. If they don't, I'll have to start some more off. Back home, I've got some I haven't got too much back home, but I've still got my herbs in my sub pod with a little bit of spinach, and I've still got some more spinach scattered around the garden. So when I'm at home, if I don't want to come up the allotment, I can always pop out, get my herbs. I generally keep all my herbs in my home garden, so I can access them really easily. And also and a little bit of spinach there as well, so again I can quickly pop out there and get some. In the greenhouse, I've still got some Cape gooseberries, which they didn't do as well as the ones here, but they're still in there, so I'm going to try and overwinter them, but we'll just have to see how that goes. I have no idea whether it's going to work or not, but I thought I would just give it a go. And my cucumbers were absolutely amazing this year, the best cucumbers I've ever had. I used the lunchbox variety. like Nimrod or F1 Baby, and I just had a constant supply of them. Never grown cucumbers like it in my life. They just kept going. I've still got a few in my fridge, but I have cleared the plants now because the frost has ruined them, and I can't believe they went on so long anyway. And I've got a few seeds as well on my shelves as well. I've got a little bit of salad leaves and a few other bits and bobs also in my greenhouse. Now I do hope you've enjoyed watching this video and it's helped and inspired you. You're looking at some things you can sow and plant in December. Please do watch the video up on the screen and in the description.